chosen one. Stop scrolling. Heaven has paused your entire timeline for this very moment. Everything around you has slowed, not by chance, but by divine command. God is trying to reach you, and this message is the test before the blessing. You have been sensing something stirring in your spirit. Haven't you? That quiet tension in your chest, that pull that tells you something greater is near. It isn't anxiety, it's divine alertness. The Spirit is awakening you because heaven is about to measure your heart. You have been marked for purpose, and the weight you've carried is not random. Every disappointment, every delay, every closed door, these were not signs of abandonment, but invitations to trust deeper. You are being observed by heaven itself, not in judgment, but in preparation. The angels have been instructed to record how you respond right now. In this very season of testing, God is not punishing you, He is proving you. The silence you've felt has been the classroom of faith. You've been asking, Lord, why does it feel like you're far away? But listen closely, the teacher is always quiet during the test. You're not alone. You're being examined for elevation. Every test is a doorway to the next realm of favor. And this one will decide whether you receive what you've been praying for or delay it another season. So hear this, your obedience right now matters more than ever. Heaven is leaning in. Destiny is watching. And every distraction that's been trying to pull you away, every doubt, every compromise, every temptation to quit is part of the test. God is testing what you do when it feels like nothing is happening. Will you still trust Him when there's no visible sign? Will you still praise Him when it hurts? The atmosphere around you has shifted. This is divine interruption. Everything that's been making you restless lately, your spirit not finding peace in old places, old relationships, old patterns, that's not confusion, it's confirmation. Heaven disrupts comfort to call forth calling. You are not meant to fit in anymore because you were chosen to stand apart. Look around you. The things that once satisfied you now feel empty. The conversations you once enjoyed now drain your spirit. The Lord is stripping away distractions because you are about to enter divine focus. This is what it means when God begins a test. He isolates you, not to punish, but to purify. He removes noise so that His whisper can be heard clearly again. And now, He is asking you to choose, will you continue scrolling, living half awake? Or will you stop and respond to the call that is burning inside you? This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Heaven has orchestrated this encounter to remind you your story is not over, and your purpose has not expired. The pain you've been enduring is proof that the next chapter is being written by the author himself. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms. Chapter 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. Rest in His presence. Stillness is not passivity, it's positioning. When you stop striving, you allow heaven to take over. You've been trying to fix things that only faith can mend. You've been carrying battles that were never meant to be fought in your own strength. God is saying, be still. In stillness, you will see what movement could never reveal. In surrender, you will witness victory. When you choose stillness, storms lose their authority. Fear begins to crumble, and peace takes command. Heaven's timing overtakes human pressure. You will discover that miracles are not chased. They are attracted by faith that refuses to move until God says, now. And in that divine pause, Revelation flows like fire through silence. The voice you've been begging to hear will finally thunder inside your spirit. The test transforms into testimony. Your waiting becomes worship. Your surrender opens the door that striving kept closed. This is your moment of awakening, your divine exam, and it begins not with doing, but with listening. The test is not about performance, it's about trust. God is asking, can I trust you with delay and not lose you to doubt? Can I trust you to keep believing when nothing makes sense? Because the blessing that's coming requires unshakable faith. If you knew how close you are to your breakthrough, you wouldn't give up now. Every tear has been counted. Every prayer has been heard. Heaven is preparing your promotion. But the test must be passed first. And that test begins with your response in this moment. Chosen one, if your spirit bears witness that this message is for you, take a holy pause. Let your heart open fully. Speak it out loud, I hear you, Lord. And as a prophetic act of obedience, comment below the number 111, symbolizing divine alignment, body, soul, and spirit coming into unity with heaven's timing. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your proving season. Be still, for heaven is speaking. You have walked through storms that no one saw, smiled while bleeding, stood tall when your soul was trembling. And all this time, heaven has been silent, not because God abandoned you, but because He has been testing what lies unseen within you. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed promise, every door that refused to open, these were not punishments. They were divine experiments of endurance, crafted to refine what could not survive in weakness. You have prayed for strength, and God answered with resistance. You asked for wisdom, and He gave you waiting. You pleaded for growth, and He gave you struggle. The hidden trial has been God's secret classroom, shaping you for stages you do not yet see. This is how He trains His chosen ones, not through applause, but through obscurity. You have felt forgotten, yet you were never out of sight. Heaven hides its favorites not to diminish them, but to protect what is still growing. You have been in the cocoon season, wrapped in divine darkness while transformation takes place. Every silent night has been heaven's whisper, trust me when you can't trace me. The very pressure you despised was the sign that you are being prepared for elevation. Remember, the test isn't in what happens to you, it's in how you respond when you don't understand. You were never meant to live by explanations, you were meant to live by revelation. God doesn't owe you clarity when He's offering you trust. There are things you prayed for that would have destroyed you if they came too early. You see denial, He sees divine delay. The hidden trial is holy ground. It's where faith grows roots that can't be shaken by storms. Anyone can worship when blessings flow. The chosen are the ones who worship when everything seems buried. That's why your tears matter. They water the soil where new promises will rise. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. Heaven measures your maturity by what you do in the dark. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, "For our light affliction, brief though it is, works for us an eternal weight of glory." Did you see it? The affliction is light compared to the glory it carries. What you've been calling pain, heaven calls preparation. What you've labeled delay, heaven calls design. The trial doesn't just test your faith, it multiplies it. Every disappointment is a divine investment. yielding a harvest you cannot yet see. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers and forgotten in prison. That was his hidden trial. But in the unseen corridors of destiny, God was aligning kings and dreams, preparing the moment when Joseph's endurance would become his crown. Your story mirrors his. You have been buried to be planted. The dungeon is not your destination. It's the womb of your promotion. So, don't despise the hidden seasons. They prove what comfort never could. The silence of God is not absence, it's strategy. He withdraws his voice to reveal your faith. When you still believe in the dark, you prove that your trust is genuine. And that's what this entire test is about. Not performance, not perfection, but purity of faith. The enemy has tried to convince you that God has forgotten your name. But the truth is, God has been saying your name in rooms you've never entered yet. Your endurance has been echoing through eternity. Every yes you've whispered in pain has become a testimony that terrifies darkness. This is why your warfare intensified lately. When heaven is near to revealing something, hell becomes noisy. Confusion increases. Distractions multiply. And emotions rise. But hear this, you're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because you're valuable. Tests come to chosen ones because destiny is close. Right now, you may not feel strong, but strength is being built inside you. The hidden trial is heaven's gym, where spiritual muscles are born. The resistance is the proof that you're growing. You won't recognize yourself when this is over. You'll rise wiser, calmer, sharper, and unshakably grounded in who you are. The test is not about whether you can handle success. It's about whether you can handle silence without losing faith. God is writing your name among those who endured. When you pass the hidden trial, you graduate into authority. You won't just quote faith, you'll embody it. The next time you feel overlooked, whisper this truth. I'm not being forgotten, I'm being fortified. Every hidden moment is storing up glory. Every quiet night is producing fruit. And when heaven finally opens the curtain, the same people who questioned you will see that the test was never punishment, it was prophecy. Hold steady. Chosen one, the trial is not forever. The same God who tested Abraham, Joseph, and David is testing you. Not to break you, but to prove you. And just like them, when your season of hiding ends, the world will see what heaven already knows. You were always chosen. Even in silence, there are moments when heaven goes silent, and everything inside you screams for a word, a sign, anything. You've prayed until your voice trembled. You've fasted until your body weakened. You've worshipped through tears that no one saw, and still nothing. No confirmation, no breakthrough, no visible change. It feels like heaven has muted itself while you are left shouting into the void. But chosen one, listen carefully, this is not abandonment. This is divine examination. When heaven is quiet, God is watching your reaction, not your results. Silence is not the absence of his presence, it is the presence of his trust. You are being trusted with stillness. When you don't hear his voice, it means he believes your heart already knows his truth. The test of silence is one of the highest forms of spiritual maturity. You see, when you first came to God, he spoke often and clearly through signs, dreams, confirmations. But as you grew, his voice changed tone. not because he withdrew, but because he expected you to recognize his presence beyond words. The silence of heaven is the graduation of faith. In this sacred quiet, something holy is forming. You may think you're losing your faith, but in truth, it's being deepened. You are learning to walk by conviction, not by confirmation. That's where true warriors of the Spirit are made, not in the noise of revelation, but in the stillness of testing. The Apostle Paul once spoke of such moments, reminding believers that faith is not built by sight or sound, but by trust in unseen promises. And as it is written in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 9, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Do not confuse quiet with distance. A teacher doesn't leave the room during a test, he simply stops explaining. You are still in his classroom. Every unanswered question is shaping your spirit for greater revelation. You're learning to recognize his presence in patterns, in peace, in the subtle nudges of the Spirit. If you could see what heaven sees right now, you'd realize how close you are to breakthrough. Every time you chose to pray again, even when it felt pointless, heaven recorded it. Every time you forgave instead of fighting back, angels took note. Every time you smiled through pain, grace multiplied. You are being prepared to carry power responsibly. The silence is stretching you so that when his voice returns, you'll hold it with reverence. Many want revelation, but few can carry it without pride. God hides his voice until your spirit is quiet enough to listen without ego. And when he finally speaks again, the sound will not just enter your ears, it will shake your bones. So if you feel unheard, know this: you are being prepared for clarity. When heaven breaks silence, it speaks through you, not just to you. That's why this period feels like emptiness. It's actually the hollowing out of self so that glory can fit inside. Remember Job. Heaven went silent while hell accused him. Yet his faith did not fade. And when God finally spoke, it wasn't an explanation, it was elevation. You too are walking through a Job moment. But the end of your story will not be loss, it will be legacy. Even the prophets experienced this silence. Elijah heard wind, fire, and earthquake, but God was not in them. Only when the chaos ceased did Elijah hear the whisper. That whisper is coming for you. Soon, the quiet will break open with divine clarity, and everything will make sense. Chosen one, the test of silence is not meant to destroy your voice, but to tune it. You are being calibrated to heaven's frequency. When you emerge from this season, you will speak with precision, authority, and discernment. People will listen, not because you're loud, but because your words will carry the weight of someone who has walked with God in the dark. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. The silence is not proof of his absence, it is evidence of his artistry. Trust the process. Keep walking even when you can't hear footsteps beside you. The road may be quiet, but every step is being written into eternity. Now, if your heart resonates with this truth, declare your endurance. Type the words "I still believe" in the comments as a sign of faith that refuses to fade. This is not a mere phrase, it's a prophetic declaration that even when heaven is silent, your spirit still sings. It tells God, "I trust you in the dark. I know you're working even when I can't see." Let your declaration echo across the unseen realms. Heaven hears you even now, though it may not answer the way you expect. And soon, when the silence ends, you will understand that every quiet night was preparing your soul for a voice that will never be mistaken again. There is a holy weight that rests upon those who wait. You, chosen one, have been walking through a wilderness where time feels heavy and progress feels invisible. You have seen others advance while you remain in pause. You have prayed for movement, for signs, for divine acceleration. Yet heaven has whispered only one word: wait. What you must understand is that this waiting is not delay, it is divine alignment. The waiting season is one of heaven's most sacred tools. God hides power behind patience. Every promise he gives must go through time's refining fire before it can be safely placed in your hands. You may think nothing is happening, but under the surface, roots are deepening. What is being built inside you will one day sustain the weight of what God places upon you. When a seed is buried, it appears to die. Yet that burial is actually its beginning. The soil of waiting hides the miracle that will one day break through. You, too, have been planted. Your tears have watered the ground of destiny. And soon the first green shoot of promise will pierce the earth. But it cannot emerge until the timing is perfect. The delay has not been punishment, it has been preservation. God saw dangers you could not see, traps laid before you by unseen hands, and so he slowed you down to save you. The doors that would not open were not lost opportunities, they were barriers of mercy. Heaven's timing is not slow, it's surgical. Every pause has purpose. You have been asking, why not now? Lord, but heaven answers, because I'm building something that must last forever. Quick blessings fade, processed blessings remain. What you are waiting for is not ordinary, it is eternal. The longer it takes, the greater the glory it will carry when it arrives. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." This is not poetic comfort, it is divine strategy. The eagle does not rush to fly. It waits for the right wind. When that wind comes, it spreads its wings and rises higher than any other bird without wasting strength. So too must you learn the rhythm of divine wind. Your waiting is not idleness, it's training for flight. You are learning endurance, not exhaustion. Every delay is strengthening spiritual muscles you didn't know you had. The pain you feel in this pause is not meant to break you, it's stretching you for more capacity. God cannot pour a great anointing into a heart that has no room for it. Waiting empties you so heaven can fill you. Many people rush into positions they prayed for, only to crumble under the pressure that follows. But you, chosen one, are different. You are being made steady. When your moment comes, you will not wobble, you will soar. Your roots will hold because they were formed in seasons where no one saw your growth. Think of David, anointed yet hidden among sheep. Years passed before the oil of destiny matched the throne of promise. That gap between calling and crowning was filled with waiting. Yet it was in that space that David learned worship, humility, and warfare. The same pattern runs through your story. The oil is already on you, but the throne requires time. In the waiting, heaven measures how you handle obscurity. Can you still sing when no one listens? Can you still pray when no answer comes? Can you still believe when others mock your patience? These are not small tests, they are the forge of true faith. What you do while waiting determines what you can handle when the blessing arrives. Waiting purifies motives. It strips away pride, entitlement, and the hunger for quick results. It teaches you that God's promises are not transactions, they are transformations. You are not waiting for something, you are being shaped into someone. The version of you that will receive the blessing is wiser, softer, stronger, and holier than the one who began this journey. So, breathe deeply in this pause. Trust the divine rhythm. Even silence is speaking if you listen closely enough. Every slow moment, every long night, every unfulfilled prayer is building endurance that will sustain your future victories. When the wait finally ends, and it will, you will understand that the very thing you once called a delay was the process that made you ready. Heaven does not rush masterpieces. You are one of them, chosen one. The test intensifies as you approach your turning point. When the enemy cannot stop your destiny, he whispers doubts into your spirit. His words come softly, almost sounding like your own thoughts. You're too late. You're too tired. Maybe you heard God wrong. But these are not your thoughts. They are lies, designed to make you surrender before your breakthrough arrives. This is the moment when heaven watches closely. You are standing at the edge of the battlefield, and the voice you choose to believe will determine whether you move forward or retreat. The enemy is not after your possessions, he's after your perspective. He knows that if he can convince you that God has forgotten you, you will drop your sword before the victory trumpet sounds. Do you remember how many times you almost gave up, but some whisper of hope kept you going? That was heaven breathing strength into your lungs. The enemy's goal has always been exhaustion. If he can't destroy you, he'll try to drain you. But you, beloved, carry a light that darkness cannot comprehend. Every attack has been proof of your impact. It was spoken in the letter of James, chapter 4, verse 7, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Picture this, a lighthouse battered by waves, its beam cutting through storm after storm. The waves crash, the winds howl, but the light does not flicker. That's you. You have become a living symbol of endurance. The storm isn't proof of your weakness. It's confirmation of your purpose. The enemy attacks what shines. Sometimes, people don't see what you're fighting through. They think your calm means you're unshaken, but only heaven knows the depth of your battles. Yet still, you stand. You keep believing, forgiving, and pressing forward. That quiet perseverance has built spiritual muscle within you that the enemy cannot break. There will be days when the whispers grow louder. The devil will remind you of every mistake, every failure, every unanswered prayer. He will try to convince you that your past disqualifies your future. But hear this truth: the blood of Christ did not cleanse you halfway, it finished the job completely. You are not the sum of your scars, you are the proof of grace. Think of yourself as gold in the furnace. Fire does not destroy gold, it purifies it. The more heat it endures, the more it shines. Your trials are the flames polishing your faith. Every tear you've cried has washed away doubt. Every moment you've endured has been preparing you to reflect heaven's light with greater clarity. And when that moment comes, when you finally rise into the place God has prepared you, will look back and realize that the whispers were just noise. They never had power unless you gave them your attention. The truth is, Your endurance has already silenced them. I want to speak to your heart now, not as a voice behind a screen, but as someone standing beside you in faith. Messages like this, these divine reminders, are like candles lit in a dark world, and together, every candle strengthens the light that drives darkness back. So, if this message has stirred something in you, if it reminded you that you are not alone in the fight, let your light join ours. Take a moment to like this message. Share it so that another weary warrior can find hope again. And subscribe so you can stay connected to this flow of truth. Each small act of support is like adding another brick to the lighthouse that guides others home. And if you feel led by the Spirit, if this word has poured strength into your soul, consider giving a donation of any size, not out of obligation, but out of love, like watering a tree that has given you shade. Your giving keeps the message alive and reaching others who are standing on their own stormy shores. Looking for a light, we do this together, not for fame, not for profit, but for souls. Every seed sown keeps the fire burning and the message of truth alive. Whether you give or simply pray, your presence here matters deeply. Hold this truth, close resistance is victory. Every time you stand your ground, the enemy loses power. Every time you lift your eyes and whisper, God, I still trust you, heaven applauds. You are winning battles even when you don't feel victorious. The storm may still rage, but soon it will tire. The light in you will not fade, it will expand. Keep shining. Chosen one, keep standing. The whispers will pass, but your strength will remain eternal. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the flames rise higher than expected. You feel surrounded, trapped in the heat of trials, unsure if you will make it out whole. The refining fire does not ask for permission, it consumes everything that cannot endure holiness. But what feels like destruction is, in truth, divine purification. You may have asked, why does it hurt this much? Lord, why do I lose what I thought I needed? And heaven whispers, because I am removing what weakens your foundation. The fire does not come to end you, it comes to reveal you. What burns away is temporary. What remains is eternal. This is the stage where God takes everything you thought defined you, positions, relationships, titles, and melts them down until only purpose remains. You are learning to stand not on what you have, but on who He is. And though the flames roar, they do not consume the core of who you are. They purify the vessel so the glory can fill it. It was written in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Picture that verse for a moment. The refiner does not leave his post while the silver burns. He watches carefully, eyes fixed on the vessel, turning the heat with purpose, not cruelty. The silver is ready when he can see his reflection in it. And that, beloved, is what God is doing with you. The heat remains until His image shines through your life. You are not forgotten in the fire. You are being watched over with holy precision. The pain that confuses you is actually producing clarity. What used to cloud your judgment is being burned away. Fear, pride, resentment, shame. The fire has a voice. It speaks to your spirit, saying, "You cannot carry this into your next season." Look back at your life, and you will see the pattern. Every time you thought you were breaking, something beautiful emerged from the ashes. When people left, you discovered peace. When plans failed, you found purpose. When everything fell apart, the foundation of faith held steady. You were never being destroyed. You were being transformed. The refining fire exposes attachments, those things you held too tightly, believing they were necessary for survival. But the fire shows you that what you truly need can never be taken from you. It burns away illusion so truth can breathe. It burns away fear so courage can speak. It burns away weakness so strength can rise. There is a certain glow that only comes from people who have been through fire and survived. Their eyes carry both sorrow and wisdom. Their words heal because they have known pain. You are becoming that light for others. God is not wasting your suffering, He is turning it into oil. The oil of your anointing is born in the heat of hardship. It's the fragrance that rises when flesh is burned and spirit is freed. You have been praying for power, and this is how heaven answers, not with comfort, but with cleansing. You cannot carry fire without being touched by it. Do not run from this season. Stay in the flames until they finish their holy work. The same fire that tests you will one day protect you. The same heat that humbles you will empower you. What the enemy meant for destruction will become the very thing that announces your resurrection. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah that beauty would rise from ashes. That promise still stands. When you emerge from this, you will not even smell like smoke. The fire will refine your character, not define your pain. The heat that once frightened you will become your testimony. Chosen one, this is your purging season. Don't despise it, embrace it. Every spark carries a lesson. Every flame burns a chain. You are being freed from invisible prisons. You are learning what cannot be shaken. You are discovering that fire reveals truth more clearly than comfort ever could. Now pause, breathe, and sense the presence of the refiner near you. He has never stepped away. The same hands that allowed the fire are the hands holding you inside it. And when He looks at you, He doesn't see defeat. He sees reflection. If this word ignites something deep within you, mark this moment of transformation. Comment the number 333 below as a prophetic sign of purification and divine completion. 3 stages of fire: faith and fulfillment coming into perfect harmony. Let heaven see your declaration that you will not run from refining, you will rise through it. Hold your peace. The fire is not your end, it's your beginning. The gold within you is already shining. And soon, the world will see the glow that only those who have walked through holy flames can carry. There are crossroads in life that do not come with clear signs. You find yourself standing between 2 roads, the familiar path of comfort and the narrow way of obedience. Both seem possible. Both whisper promises. But only one carries destiny. This is the point where heaven steps back and allows you to choose. Not because God is uncertain of your heart, but because He wants you to see what resides there. The greatest test of the chosen is not in crisis, it is in choice. Anyone can cry out to God in disaster, but few can obey Him when comfort tempts them to stay. This is where the test intensifies, not through suffering, but through subtlety. It's easy to resist the obvious wrongs. It's harder to resist the almost right. The book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15 declares, "Choose this day whom you will serve." That verse was never meant to echo from history. It was meant to reverberate through every soul who walks the path of purpose. You cannot walk both roads. Obedience and convenience do not coexist. Each decision is a seed, and every seed you plant will grow into a future that either carries light or shadow. God is not trying to trick you. He's trying to train you. Every choice builds a pattern, every yes and no forming the blueprint of your destiny. The test before you now is not about results, it's about alignment. Will your decisions reflect trust? Or will they reveal fear? Sometimes obedience looks illogical. It may ask you to walk away from people you love, to release dreams that no longer fit the season, to step into unknown waters with no bridge beneath your feet. But heaven has never required understanding before movement. It requires faith. When you move, the water parts. When you hesitate, the tide rises. You've been feeling that stirring lately, the pull to leave something behind, the gentle conviction that says, this chapter is closing. But fear keeps whispering that if you let go, you'll lose everything. That is the illusion of control. True faith is trusting that God can only fill empty hands. You cannot receive new oil while clinging to old jars. The moment of choice reveals what you value most. Will you cling to what's familiar? Or will you trust the invisible hand that has guided you this far? The comfort zone is not your friend, it's your cage. It wraps itself in the language of safety, but underneath it suffocates purpose. There is a quiet dignity in those who choose obedience over convenience. They walk away from applause to follow a whisper. They are misunderstood, sometimes mocked, but heaven calls them faithful. Every major figure in Scripture reached this same crossroad. Abraham had to leave his homeland. Moses had to return to Egypt. Esther had to risk her crown. Obedience always requires surrender. You may think your choice is small, but in eternity, it echoes. One decision to obey shifts generations. One step of faith writes history. That is why this test matters so deeply. Heaven is not testing your ability, it's testing your alignment. When your will matches God's, miracles move naturally. Sometimes the hardest choice is to stay when leaving would be easier. Other times, it's to leave when staying feels safe. The key is not to rush the moment. Wait until peace leads, not pressure. The voice of God is never frantic. It will not manipulate you through fear. It calls gently but firmly, leading you toward what is pure, true, and lasting. You are not at this crossroads by accident. Everything in your past has led you here. The battles, the silence, the fire, it all prepared your heart for clarity. You are stronger now, wiser, more discerning. You know what peace feels like, and you recognize when something lacks it. Use that discernment now. There's a reason the enemy fights your obedience so fiercely. It unlocks things that prayer alone cannot. Prayer connects you to heaven. Obedience activates heaven on earth. When you obey, you authorize God to move. Disobedience closes the flow. That's why this decision carries such weight. It's more than preference, it's partnership. Do not fear making the wrong move. If your heart is surrendered, God can redirect motion, but He cannot steer hesitation. Faith is movement. Trust is letting go of the need to control every outcome. The Lord is not waiting for perfection, He's waiting for your yes. You might not see the full picture yet, but you will. Every obedient step unveils more of the path, and one day, You'll look back and realize that the choice which cost you comfort gave you everything that mattered. The test before you is sacred. Heaven does not ask for your perfection, only your permission. Choose well, for the next chapter depends on it. And remember, obedience may feel like loss for a moment, but in eternity, it always becomes gain. You have been broken, haven't you? The kind of breaking that leaves your spirit trembling and your faith searching for air. Life has pressed against you so hard that you wondered if there would be anything left to rebuild. But listen closely. Chosen one, the breaking was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to expose what could not stay hidden any longer. The breaking is not the end, it is the birthplace of blessing. It is written in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Those words are not poetic comfort, they are a divine reality. God draws closest when the world pulls away. When you are too weak to stand, heaven kneels beside you. When you lose what you thought you could not live without, He begins to show you what you were never meant to carry in the first place. The breaking feels violent, but it is the mercy of reconstruction. God never builds on shaky foundations. When He begins to bless you, He first dismantles what was falsely supporting you: pride, fear, dependency on people, approval, or control. That's why it hurts so much. He wasn't taking from you. He was making room for something purer, something that could last. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment has been a divine hammer shaping your inner structure. You thought it was punishment, but it was precision. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot step into new seasons with old versions of yourself. The breaking was the sound of heaven remodeling your spirit. Remember the story of the alabaster jar, a vessel shattered at the feet of Jesus. Only when it broke did the fragrance fill the room. That's you, beloved. The aroma of your anointing could not be released until your jar cracked. The moments you cursed as loss have become the very moments heaven celebrates as release. You see, God doesn't break to humiliate. He breaks to liberate. The breaking frees you from false strength, from masks that suffocate authenticity. It peels away layers that never belonged to you in the first place. Every tear that fell became liquid prayer. Every sigh of exhaustion was heard as worship in heaven's courts. You may not have realized it yet, but something sacred happens when your heart shatters before God. The fragments become building stones for your future. Each piece that felt ruined is redeemed, polished by grace, and placed into the architecture of a new identity. You are being rebuilt stronger than before, holy mosaic, living testimony. The breaking also rewrites your compassion. Before this, you might have comforted others from intellect. Now, you comfort from experience. Pain has given your words weight. When you speak healing, heaven moves because your heart knows what it means to bleed. This is why broken vessels carry greater authority. They've been touched by both suffering and mercy. Do not despise the cracks. They are where light enters. Every scar glows with the proof of divine repair. What once marked shame now radiates strength. You are no longer who you were before the breaking, and that's the miracle. The person who entered the storm is not the same one walking out of it. The ashes have turned into oil. The wound has turned into wisdom. God's blessings often arrive in disguise. They don't always come wrapped in comfort. Sometimes they come cloaked in collapse. But within that collapse, He places the blueprint of resurrection. The breaking has been heaven's way of removing what could not go with you. You prayed for blessing, and God answered with transformation. This process is not quick, but it is complete. Slowly, the heart learns to trust again. Slowly, the pain turns into purpose. Slowly, the silence becomes song. And one morning, without realizing it, you wake up lighter, freer, stronger. You start to see beauty in the ruins. You begin to thank God, not despite the breaking, but for it. That's when you understand that brokenness was not your enemy. It was your rebirth. The same fire that burned your plans lit the lamp of your purpose. The same hand that allowed the fracture is the hand now healing you. You were never too fragile to survive this. You were simply too valuable to remain unrefined. The blessing hidden in breaking is the revelation that you were never alone, not even for a heartbeat. God was there, chiseling away everything temporary so that what is eternal could finally emerge. So, walk forward, not as one shattered, but as one reshaped. Carry your cracks with reverence. They are sacred. They tell the world that even broken things can shine, that even wounded hearts can worship, and that God's best work is done in the aftermath of surrender. The blessing you thought you lost is waiting on the other side of this revelation. You haven't been destroyed, you've been redesigned. The breaking is your making, and heaven calls it beautiful. There is a battle that rages louder than any war on earth, and it is happening within you. Not a battle of flesh and blood, but of belief and doubt, of trust and fear. It's the quiet war fought in your thoughts when no one is watching, when the world thinks you are fine, but your soul trembles behind closed doors. The Apostle wrote long ago in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and darknesses, rulers, spiritual wickedness above." You've felt that battle, haven't you? Those invisible pressures that seem to pull you backward every time you start to rise. The exhaustion that doesn't come from work, but from warfare. The sudden heaviness, the confusion, the urge to give up. It's all evidence that your spirit is being opposed because you are advancing. Hell doesn't fight what isn't threatening. The intensity of your warfare reveals the importance of your calling. Every dart of discouragement, every whisper of doubt, every emotional storm, it's all meant to stop you from realizing who you truly are, God's chosen warrior, armed with authority that darkness fears. But the enemy doesn't come with horns and fire. He comes in thoughts that sound like your own voice. He whispers that you are unworthy, that your prayers don't matter, that your past defines your limits. Yet, every one of those lies collapses the moment you remember who sent you. You were not called to live in defeat. You were commissioned to carry dominion. When spiritual battles rise, you must remember this: the war within is won by truth. The enemy feeds on confusion, but truth starves him. When you declare the word, light breaks through every shadow. That is why your warfare intensifies after every revelation, because truth threatens the lies that once ruled your mind. You may have noticed that battles come in cycles. Just when you think peace has arrived, a new wave hits. But this is not a loop of failure, it's a ladder of growth. Every cycle brings you to a higher level of discernment, stripping away illusions and deepening your strength. You are not repeating, you are rising. The enemy attacks the area of your assignment. If you are called to bring peace, he stirs conflict. If you are meant to speak life, he tries to silence your voice. If you are destined to carry joy, he sends despair. But those attacks are not proof that you are losing. They are proof that you are carrying something precious. A thief never breaks into an empty house. When you begin to recognize patterns in your warfare, you start taking power back. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. You understand that storms don't always come to destroy you. Sometimes they come to announce that something greater is being born. Remember this truth. Even Jesus faced the wilderness before the wonders. The Spirit led him there not to punish him, but to prepare him. And when he walked out, he carried a power that could not be questioned. You are in that same preparation. This battle is your wilderness. And when you emerge, you will speak with authority born from endurance. Your battle is shaping your voice, refining your discernment, and teaching you which thoughts belong to heaven and which do not. Every victory in secret becomes strength in public. You are learning to silence lies with Scripture, to replace fear with faith, to see temptation as a sign of territory being claimed. You may still feel the weight of it tonight, the pressure that keeps you awake. But remember, every time you choose peace over panic, you win. Every time you pray when it would be easier to complain, you win. Every time you refuse to retaliate, you win. Victory isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like breathing through chaos and whispering, "I trust you anyway." The more you fight, the clearer you become. The same fire that tried to consume you will eventually reveal your true shape. And soon, others will look to you for guidance, because your scars will become blueprints of survival. Now, beloved warrior, if this message speaks directly into the battlefield of your mind, I want you to mark this moment of clarity. Type "I overcome" in the comments, not as an empty phrase, but as a weapon of faith. When you declare those two words, you do more than write a comment. You echo heaven's decree. You tell every unseen power that you recognize your identity. You remind your soul that victory has already been written. Your declaration becomes a sword that slices through fear, anxiety, and confusion. Every letter becomes a light in the dark. And as you speak it, feel heaven align with you. The angels that stood silent now take position. The weight begins to lift. Not because the battle has vanished, but because you remembered who fights beside you. This war within you will not last forever. One day, you will realize the enemy's greatest mistake was trying to attack someone God had already crowned. You are not just surviving, you are overcoming. The battle is real, but so is your victory. And the moment you choose to believe it, everything begins to shift. There are moments in your journey when heaven pauses, not because God is absent, but because He's watching your next move. You stand at a sacred intersection, faith or fear, surrender or control, obedience or hesitation. This is the moment of decision, the turning point that separates wandering from walking in destiny. Heaven does not measure you by your words alone, but by what you do when conviction whispers louder than convenience. Many pray for open doors, yet when they appear, few have the courage to step through. Every act of obedience becomes a bridge between promise and manifestation. It is not talent or intelligence that unlocks destiny, it is the courage to say yes when everything in you wants to stay safe. Scripture records in the first book of Samuel, chapter 15, Verse 22. To obey is better than sacrifice. To heed is better than the fat of rams. These words cut through centuries and still burn with truth. God does not crave performance. He desires alignment. He would rather have your obedience than your offerings, your surrender rather than your strategy. The power of your next chapter lies not in what you do for Him, but in what you allow Him to do through you. Every time heaven prepares to elevate you, it gives you an opportunity to obey. Sometimes that obedience looks small, sending a message, forgiving an enemy, releasing a habit, but heaven sees the ripple. Obedience opens doors that intellect cannot. The simple yes you give to God shakes unseen realms. The story of Peter comes to mind. When Jesus asked him to step out of the boat, Peter didn't walk on water because the water became solid. He walked because obedience overruled logic. Every miracle you've ever read about began with someone's yes. You stand before your own water now. It may not be waves of the sea, but waves of uncertainty, fear, or doubt. The moment you step forward, heaven honors your motion. I know sometimes obedience feels heavy. You think, what if I lose what I love? What if it doesn't work out? But chosen one, obedience is never loss, it's exchange. God never takes something without giving something greater in return. The difficulty you feel is not punishment, it's the stretching of faith. Now, imagine this: your life as a garden. Every time you obey, you plant a seed of trust. Some seeds bloom quickly, others lie buried for seasons. But each act of obedience creates roots that reach deep into divine soil. When the rain of favor falls, those seeds awaken, and what seemed forgotten becomes a forest of blessing. The greatest decision you can make today is to keep saying yes, even when you can't see the outcome. Because faith is not seeing and then believing, it's believing until you see. And while you walk this narrow road, remember that you are not alone. This space, this message, this very encounter exists to remind you that others walk beside you. The world can be noisy with distraction, and sometimes faith feels lonely. But here, we build a place of light, a space for souls who still believe in divine purpose, who still listen when heaven whispers. So if this word stirs something in you, if it reignites that quiet fire of obedience, let your heart respond. Take a moment to like this message. It's not about numbers, but about resonance. Every like is a small spark that tells the algorithm of this digital world, light still matters here. Share it with someone standing at their own crossroads. You never know whose storm you'll calm by sending this lifeline. And if you haven't already, subscribe, not as a routine, but as a commitment to growth. Think of it as planting your flag in a land of faith, declaring that you choose to walk in alignment with heaven's voice rather than the noise of the world. Lastly, if this message has ministered to you, consider a small act of generosity. Donate, not as payment, but as partnership. Giving is the echo of gratitude. When you sow into something that feeds your soul, you water the very soil from which it grows. Just as rivers flow back into the ocean that birthed them, your seed returns to the source to multiply the light. No act of obedience, spiritual or practical, is ever wasted. Every click, every share, every gift becomes a thread in the divine tapestry God is weaving through these messages. Together, we create something living, something eternal, a chorus of souls saying yes to God in unity. You may not realize it now, But your obedience here, your engagement, your generosity is itself a prophetic act. You're saying, I will not be passive in the presence of purpose. And heaven takes notice. Beloved, this is your moment of decision. Don't let fear convince you to delay what faith has already confirmed. Step forward. Say yes. Do what God has placed in your heart to do, no matter how small it seems, because one step of obedience can open doors that generations after you will walk through. One yes can shift an entire bloodline. You are standing at a divine threshold. Don't hesitate at the doorway. Walk through. Heaven is waiting on your movement. There comes a point after the storm, after the long night of testing, when you begin to notice something subtle. The air feels lighter. The silence no longer suffocates. What once felt like abandonment begins to feel like peace. You realize that the pain hasn't vanished, but its power over you has. That's the first sign. Chosen one, that you are passing the test. Heaven has been watching not for perfection, but for endurance. The trials were never about how strong you could appear, but about whether you would still look upward when everything inside you wanted to fall apart. And now, in the quiet aftermath, there is a stillness that speaks louder than any thunder. The ground beneath your feet feels steadier. The chaos within has begun to rest. That calm, that deep breath that doesn't require explanation, that is the sign of divine approval. It is written in the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 16. You will know them by their fruits. This verse is more than moral advice. It is spiritual revelation. Heaven identifies faith not by emotion, but by fruit, by the quiet evidence of transformation. The fruit of this test is not the absence of pain, but the presence of peace. You may not have realized it, but you've begun to bear that fruit. Your words have softened. Your reactions have slowed. Your heart no longer trembles at every delay. That is what heaven calls maturity. When God tests, He is not searching for information. He already knows you. He is revealing your strength to yourself. Every challenge you faced peeled back another layer, showing you that you were stronger, wiser, and more faithful than you believed. Trials expose truth, and truth produces fruit. Think of a tree after a storm. Its branches may be broken, its leaves scattered, but its roots are deeper than before. The storm did not destroy it. It clarified its strength. That's what God has done within you. He's deepened your roots in the soil of trust. What once shook you now only sways you. The winds that once terrified you now teach you rhythm. These are the quiet signs that heaven sees and approves. The bitterness that once rose quickly now dissolves before it can speak. The fear that used to paralyze you now passes like a shadow that can't find form. You no longer beg for control, you rest in surrender. And though you may not have heard heaven speak it aloud, your spirit has already heard the words, "Well done." Beloved one, you're learning to walk with me. The signs of passing aren't always dramatic. Sometimes they look like laughter returning after silence. Sometimes they look like you praying again, not for escape, but for alignment. Sometimes they sound like forgiveness whispered in tears. Sometimes they feel like being still without needing to understand why. That's how God measures victory. Not by how loudly you shout, but by how quietly you trust. Not by how fast you move, but by how faithfully you wait. Heaven is less interested in your speed and more interested in your stability. You may still be surrounded by unfinished things, promises half fulfilled, dreams half revealed, but inside, something is complete. That inner wholeness is a testimony in itself. You have passed from striving into surrender. You are learning to live from rest, not reaction. When you walk through the valley now, you no longer ask, "Why me?" you ask, "What are you teaching me?" That shift in question is a sign of growth. It means your heart has graduated from complaint to communion. You've stopped trying to escape the process and started to embrace the presence that walks with you through it. Even your prayers have changed. They used to be cries for rescue. Now they are songs of gratitude. You used to ask God to remove the fire. Now you thank Him for refining you in it. That shift in tone is what separates survivors from victors. And as you look around, you'll begin to notice that your perspective has widened. What once looked like chaos now reveals pattern. You see how every delay positioned you, how every disappointment redirected you, how every loss made space for something higher. What once felt like punishment now feels like purpose. You are beginning to understand what heaven has been trying to teach all along, that the test was never to prove God's faithfulness to you, but your faithfulness to Him. You are walking in new light now. It shines quietly steady, humble, real. People around you may not understand the glow that follows you. They'll call it peace. But you'll know it's approval. It's the fragrance of one who has wrestled and survived. Of one who no longer fears breaking because they've learned that God rebuilds better. So, chosen one, look back once more, not to dwell, but to recognize, see the distance between who you were and who you are now. That gap is grace. That growth is glory. You've passed through the furnace and found your reflection clearer than ever. Heaven has seen, and heaven is pleased. And though the journey continues, this moment is sacred. You have reached a checkpoint in destiny, a quiet yes from heaven whispered into your spirit. You may not hear trumpets or see signs in the sky, but know this: every step you've taken has been counted. Every breath of faith has been recorded, and every silent endurance has been crowned with divine favor. You are passing the test, and the fruit of your faith is already blooming. There are moments when heaven, after long silence and fire, sends a whisper of confirmation so unmistakable that your spirit trembles. You begin to notice patterns, numbers appearing repeatedly, words you hear more than once, a phrase in a song that feels like it was written only for you. You might see a feather on your path, a door open without explanation, or peace descend when logic says there should be none. These are not coincidences. They are divine confirmations, heaven's gentle way of saying, you are still chosen. You may have doubted it through the storms. You may have cried, wondering if you somehow disqualified yourself from destiny. But the mercy of God does not revoke calling, it restores confidence. The same God who began the work in you is determined to finish it. And every sign that now surrounds you is heaven's way of pulling you closer to trust again. The prophet once wrote in the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 7, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing His plan to His servants, the prophets." These confirmations are God revealing His plan in pieces, not to overwhelm you, but to assure you that you are walking in rhythm with His timing. You have not been wandering aimlessly. You've been following unseen coordinates written in the language of faith. Perhaps lately you've felt a strange alignment, people coming into your life at just the right time. Messages that seem to speak directly to your situation. or dreams that carry answers you didn't know you needed. This is what it looks like when heaven echoes itself. God speaks once, then confirms twice, then seals 3 times until even doubt must bow. You must learn to recognize these divine fingerprints. They are subtle, gentle, easy to miss if you rush through life. Confirmation is not meant to startle, it's meant to steady. When God confirms something, peace wraps around it. Confusion never comes with divine communication. If what you feel brings peace that surpasses understanding, it is from Him. Many mistake silence for absence, but confirmation always follows testing. Heaven does not stay quiet forever, it responds. Not with thunder, but with alignment. Look back, and you will see it how the timing worked out when you thought it was too late. How protection came disguised as rejection. How redirection birthed revelation. Every moment now fits. Every delay now makes sense. You've been walking through a maze, and suddenly, the pieces begin to connect. You realize that even your detours were part of the design. The pain you thought was random has been refined into purpose. The clarity you feel now is not new, it's simply the removal of what clouded your vision. When confirmation comes, it brings holy boldness. You no longer hesitate when you hear His instruction. You stop begging for signs because you realize you have become one. You carry evidence within you, your endurance, your growth, your transformation. These are heaven's confirmations made flesh. This is how God works with His chosen. He hides, then He hints, then He confirms. His methods never change, but your sensitivity to them does. You are learning to hear whispers that others miss. You are becoming fluent in the language of heaven. There is something else. True divine timing often reveals itself through numbers. Heaven has always used numbers as symbols, codes that carry meaning. 7s for completion, 12s for order, 10s for testing, and so on. When certain numbers begin to follow you, pay attention. It may not be superstition, it may be God's signature. So, if this message resonates with the rhythm of your spirit, if you feel the confirmation stirring right now, acknowledge it before heaven. Comment the number 555 below as a prophetic declaration that change, grace, and alignment are unfolding for you in this exact season. The number 555 symbolizes divine transition, the shift between endings and beginnings. It marks the moment when heaven releases you from old cycles and ushers you into new assignments. By writing it, you're not just participating, you're agreeing with heaven's movement. You are declaring, I receive the change that God has prepared for me. When you type it, let it be more than an action, it's an altar. Every number carries intention, every declaration becomes a key. You're unlocking something not with your hands, but with your faith. You are letting heaven know, I recognize the signs, I see your hand, I will not fear the shift. Confirmation often comes right before manifestation. The signs around you are increasing because what you've been waiting for is closer than you think. Heaven never wastes repetition, it amplifies it. Every echo is a reminder that your story is unfolding exactly as it should. You are entering a new rhythm now. The confusion that once clouded you is lifting. Peace is taking its rightful place. Doors are about to open. Not because you knocked harder, but because you waited longer. The delay has ripened into readiness. Chosen one, Breathe this truth in. Heaven has confirmed your identity, your calling, and your timing. What once felt uncertain now carries divine evidence. You have not missed it, you have matured into it. The voice you hear now may be soft, but it's clear. The signs may be simple, but they're sacred. This is your divine confirmation. Every piece of your journey is now aligning. You are still chosen. You are still seen. And the next chapter will reveal what the signs have been promising all along. There were doors that closed so suddenly you didn't even have time to knock again. Opportunities you thought were yours slipped away. Relationships that felt permanent dissolved overnight. And prayers that once carried excitement ended in silence. It seemed cruel, almost random, until now. For only now do you begin to see what heaven was really doing. Those closed doors were never rejection, they were redirection. The Lord was not ignoring you, He was protecting what you could not yet perceive. There are blessings too pure to be placed in the wrong season. Some doors stayed locked because the rooms behind them were not ready for you. You thought you were prepared, but heaven knew there were still walls to build, lessons to learn, foundations to strengthen. It is written in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verse 7, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." This verse carries the heartbeat of divine timing. It reveals the tenderness of a God who allows misunderstanding for a moment so that revelation can last a lifetime. You wept at those closed doors, unaware that behind them, something greater was being arranged. You have to understand, heaven's protection often feels like pain. The delay feels like denial. The redirection feels like rejection. But it is mercy disguised as loss. God has shielded you from battles you were not built to fight yet, from alliances that would have drained your peace, from blessings that would have broken your balance. What was withheld was never punishment, it was preservation. Look closely at your story, and you'll see the pattern. Every time you thought something ended, it actually pivoted you closer to purpose. You didn't lose the blessing, you were rerouted to the right version of it. The divine detour always leads to safer ground, even when the path feels unfamiliar. Think of Joseph once again, betrayed by brothers and thrown into prison. Every closed door was a corridor to destiny. Had he stayed where he was comfortable, he would have died in mediocrity. But through rejection, he was redirected to the palace. Your life carries that same rhythm. What broke your heart was the hand of God steering your steps. You see, heaven knows the weight of what's ahead. The doors you wanted opened too early would have let storms in. God sometimes delays, not because you are unworthy, but because the environment around you is unprepared. The promise remains, but the timing must align. That's why faith must mature into patience. In hindsight, the path begins to make sense. The people who left did you a favor. The plans that failed saved you from false success. The opportunities you missed would have anchored you in places too small for your calling. You cried when those doors shut, but heaven celebrated, because closure is not the end, it's divine editing. We often want God to bless what He's trying to bury. We cling to doors He's already sealed because we think comfort equals calling. But true faith is learning to thank Him for every no that protected a future yes. That kind of trust turns heartbreak into holy ground. You have been walking through corridors you didn't plan, yet they've led you here into wisdom, into peace, into clarity. Every locked gate taught you how to listen rather than rush, how to discern rather than chase, how to wait rather than worry. What felt like delay was actually discipline shaping destiny. When God hides a blessing, it's not to punish, it's to protect its purity. Some things must grow in the shadows before they can survive the light. That's why you haven't seen certain prayers answered yet. The seed is alive, but it's underground. When the season changes, it will rise. There's something else about divine protection. It often rewrites your definition of success. You start realizing that open doors aren't always the goal, right doors are. You stop praying for access and start praying for alignment. You no longer chase what looks promising, you pursue what feels peaceful. That shift marks the maturity of the chosen. God's ways rarely make sense in the moment. The path of protection is often disguised as disappointment. But someday, you'll look back and see that every locked door had fingerprints of mercy. You'll thank him for not answering the prayers you once begged him to fulfill. You are not where you are by accident. Every detour has divine design. You were meant to walk this slower, safer road because the pace is protecting the promise. What's coming next requires strength you wouldn't have developed if everything had gone according to your plan. So do not curse the door that refused to open. Do not resent the season that delayed your dream. Those were not barriers, they were boundaries drawn by love. The blessing was never cancelled. It was simply being guarded until you were ready to receive it without losing yourself in it. And when that day comes, and it will, you'll understand why God said no. Why he closed what you begged him to open. You'll realize that his silence was not indifference, but strategy. You'll see that every step was precise. Every pause was purposeful. And every detour was sacred. The blessing behind closed doors is not just what awaits you on the other side. It's who you become on the journey there. That's the real gift, the peace, wisdom, and trust that no open door could ever teach. There is a moment after long endurance when the tide finally begins to turn. You sense it first, not through miracles, but through peace. The heaviness that used to follow you begins to lift. The confusion that once clouded every thought starts to clear. You wake up one morning and realize you are not fighting to survive anymore. You are learning to live again. This is the restoration season. You see, restoration is not simply the return of what was lost. It is the renewal of what was refined. God does not give you back what was taken in the same condition. It comes back multiplied, sanctified, and saturated with purpose. What was stolen from you is returning, but not as it left. It is coming back improved, healed, and whole. It is written in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. You may not even notice restoration at first, because it rarely arrives in the same shape as what was taken. Sometimes it comes through new friendships after old ones end. Sometimes it comes through unexpected peace after seasons of turmoil. Sometimes it comes through wisdom so deep that you no longer crave what you once lost. Restoration isn't just God giving things back, it's Him giving you back to yourself. There is beauty in how God restores. He does it quietly, like dawn creeping over a long night. Slowly, gently, light begins to fill the places where darkness once dwelled. You start to laugh again without forcing it. You find yourself forgiving people you once couldn't mention without pain. You remember who you are, not the wounded one, not the rejected one, but the resilient one, the redeemed one, the chosen one. Restoration is proof that heaven keeps records. Nothing you've lost is truly lost in God's economy. Every sacrifice, every act of faith, Every hidden obedience is stored like treasure. When the appointed time arrives, heaven releases it all at once. And what you receive doesn't just fill the gaps, it overflows them. You might ask, but why did I have to lose so much first? Because restoration can only be appreciated by those who have known emptiness. Fullness means nothing to those who've never been hungry. You had to feel lack to recognize abundance, to understand that everything good is grace and not coincidence. The Lord has been rebuilding you piece by piece, ensuring that when He restores you, you will never lose yourself in blessing again. What once would have distracted you will now drive you closer to Him. That's how restoration works. It turns idols into instruments and losses into lessons. Think of Job, whose story began with devastation but ended with double portion. He did not just get new cattle, new land, and new family. He received new vision. He saw God not through second-hand stories, but with his own eyes. That was the true restoration, the awakening of intimacy. And that same kind of restoration is unfolding within you. You are standing in the early light of your recovery season. What's coming isn't random favor, it's calculated recompense. Heaven has tallied what was taken. The scales of time are being balanced. Where there was shame, honor will rise. Where there was scarcity, provision will overflow. Where there was pain, purpose will flourish. Do not be surprised if blessings start finding you without effort. It's not luck, it's return on endurance. The seeds you planted in tears are about to bloom in laughter. The very places that once symbolized pain will soon radiate joy. You will walk through familiar landscapes and feel them transformed because you have changed within them. Restoration also carries responsibility. It asks that you protect your peace, that you cherish your healing, that you guard your new beginnings with wisdom. What you are receiving is holy. It cannot be handled carelessly. The same patience that carried you through the waiting must now sustain you in the blessing, and yet, even in abundance. Remember, this restoration is not the final destination, it is the doorway to greater purpose. God restores you, not just for your sake, but for those who will look at your story and find hope. You become living evidence that resurrection is real, that nothing is too broken for redemption. As you move forward, carry gratitude like armor. Every blessing you touch is a reminder that the night did not win. Every laugh is proof that healing came. Every peaceful morning whispers, "You survived what tried to end you." This is your restoration season. The tables are turning. The heavens are shifting. And all that was scattered is being gathered again. You are not returning to who you were before the storm. You are becoming who you were always meant to be. And when people see you now, they will not just see what was restored. They will see the reflection of a God who makes all things new. You can feel it, can't you? That gentle tug inside your chest, the one that tells you heaven is calling you to step into alignment. You've come through the silence, the fire, the waiting, and the breaking. Now God is inviting you to live from the place He's been preparing all along. This isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are becoming. Alignment is when your inner rhythm matches heaven's heartbeat. There is a peace that only comes when your will stops wrestling with God's. You've fought long enough, trying to carry the weight of what was never yours to manage. Now the Spirit whispers, "Rest. Let me lead." Alignment doesn't mean perfection, it means positioning. It's like tuning an instrument. Even the smallest adjustment brings harmony. It is written in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6. Verse 33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added. This verse is not a command of deprivation, it's an invitation to order. God is not asking you to give up joy. He's asking you to seek it in its purest form. When you put him first, everything else begins to find its proper place. The chaos of confusion fades, and what once felt heavy starts to flow. Alignment is the riverbed through which blessing runs freely. Imagine a garden left untended. The flowers still exist, but weeds choke their growth. Alignment is the gardener's hand, removing what strangles beauty, pruning what hinders fruit. Sometimes, God's correction feels like cutting, but it's actually cultivation. He trims what steals your strength so that your spirit can bloom again. You have outgrown certain versions of yourself. Old habits, old conversations, old environments. They no longer fit the person you are becoming. The discomfort you feel is not punishment, it's spiritual growth. Alignment asks you to release what was once good but is no longer right. God is calling you higher, and not everything can come with you. Picture a bird learning to fly after being healed from injury. The wings are ready, but the cage door is still open. That's you now. The cage of the past no longer holds power, but you must decide to spread your wings. The sky is waiting. The only thing left is your choice. Living in alignment means choosing consistency over comfort. It means showing up for your calling even when no one is watching. It means listening more than speaking, surrendering more than striving. It's a rhythm of grace, steps, guided not by fear of failure, but by faith in his direction. And as you take those steps, know that this space exists to remind you that you're not alone on this journey. These words, these messages, they are like lamps placed along a dark path. If one of them has illuminated your steps, let that light ripple outward. Take a moment to like this message, not as a casual click, but as an act of connection. Each like is a candle in a window saying, I'm part of this movement toward light. Share it with someone who feels lost in the noise, someone searching for the courage to align again. You never know whose soul you might steady with one act of kindness. And if these messages have become part of your walk, subscribe to stay connected. Think of it as joining a family of faith, where every story adds to the strength of the others. We grow together, word by word, reminder by reminder, grace upon grace. For those who feel moved deeper, who sense the Spirit nudging, if these words have poured peace or strength into your heart, consider giving a donation. It's not about transaction, it's about transformation. Giving is how light multiplies. Imagine tossing a pebble into a still pond. Each ripple represents another life touched, another weary heart reached. Your support is the ripple that keeps the water moving. And while you're here, leave a comment below. Write from the heart one sentence, one thought, one spark of revelation. When you speak faith into this space, you strengthen others who scroll through in silence, searching for proof that God still speaks. Your voice might be the one that wakes another soul. Chosen one, this is your season of alignment. Everything you've endured has led you here to clarity, to peace, to divine order. As you align, the noise will quiet, the distractions will fall away, and the road will unfold beneath your feet. Keep your spirit tuned to heaven's melody. You've survived chaos, now walk in harmony. And as you do, let your life become a song that others can follow, a melody of obedience, grace, and light. Before every promise, there comes one final examination, the moment where God tests not your strength, but your surrender. This is not the kind of test that can be studied for. It comes quietly, without warning, often disguised as an ordinary choice. You feel it deep in your spirit, the gentle pressure to trust even when the path makes no sense. Heaven calls this the final proving ground. You've already endured so much silence, delay, rejection, fire, and breaking. Each season has purified you, stripped you of pride, and softened your heart. But before elevation, God tests the posture of your soul, not to disqualify you, but to reveal that you are ready. Every chosen one faces this moment, a sacred crossroad between comfort and calling. The book of Psalms, chapter 11, verse 5 declares, "The Lord tests the righteous, but he hates the wicked and those who love violence." This is not a threat, it's a truth about divine order. Testing separates the counterfeit from the consecrated. God's tests are not for punishment, they are for authentication. Before heaven releases power, it ensures purity. You are being examined not because you are weak, but because you are worthy of more. Sometimes, the final test feels like nothing is happening. The external chaos has quieted, but inside, a storm brews. You wonder, have I done enough? Have I passed? Yet the test is not about performance, it's about patience. Can you remain faithful when nothing changes? Can you still love when others misunderstand you? Can you stay kind when no one thanks you? That is what God is watching now. You are being measured in moments no one sees. Heaven observes your heart when no reward is promised. It listens to the tone of your prayers when you receive correction. It watches how you handle opportunities that tempt pride. Every small decision becomes a thread in the fabric of destiny. There is a purity that only hidden obedience can produce. When you choose integrity over influence, silence over self-defense, humility over recognition, that's when heaven takes note. Those invisible victories are the foundation of visible favor. What looks like insignificance in the natural is power in the spiritual. Think of Abraham on the mountain, holding the knife over his promised son. The test wasn't about Isaac, it was about Abraham's heart. God wanted to see if the promise had replaced the promise giver. And when Abraham proved that obedience mattered more than outcome, heaven shouted, "Now I know." That moment opened generations of blessing. You, too, are standing on a mountain of decision. What God has placed in your hand, dreams, relationships, opportunities, He may ask you to lay on the altar, not to destroy, but to demonstrate trust. The moment you release control, the test ends, and resurrection begins. Often, the hardest part of the final test is not action, but stillness. You want to fix, explain, justify, move, but heaven whispers, "Be still, and let me finish what I started." Patience is not passivity, it is power under divine restraint. Waiting gracefully is one of the highest forms of faith. During this final testing, distractions will rise like waves. Old temptations resurface, not to defeat you, but to prove they no longer own you. The enemy sends familiar voices to provoke reaction. But this time, you won't take the bait. Your silence is your victory. The enemy cannot fight someone who refuses to engage in noise. Remember how gold is tested. It's not broken or reshaped. It's placed under heat until all impurities surface. Then, once the metal reflects the refiner's face, the fire stops. That's you right now. The reflection is almost clear. Heaven sees itself in you. The trial doesn't end because you've suffered enough. It ends because you've become enough. This test is about readiness. The higher the calling, the deeper the testing. And, though the weight feels heavy, know this: God never tests to destroy. He tests to promote. You are being measured for enlargement. The current pressure is proof that heaven is expanding your capacity. When the test is complete, you'll notice it not by fireworks or fanfare, but by a shift inside, a calm confidence, a holy quiet, a deep sense of knowing. The striving stops. The waiting no longer feels heavy. You no longer question timing because your spirit trusts the rhythm of heaven. That's how you know the test is over. Chosen one, take comfort. The fire has not been in vain. Every moment of restraint, every unseen act of obedience, every tear of surrender has been recorded. The test is almost complete. The next sound you'll hear won't be silence. It will be the opening of the heavens, declaring, "It's time." Stand firm, even here. Even now, the refiner's eyes are upon you. The proving is nearly finished, and the promise is closer than it has ever been. The air feels different now. The heaviness that once pressed against your spirit has lifted. You can sense it even before you see it. The promise is near. After everything you've endured, after every test, delay, and refinement, heaven is ready to crown you. This is not a metaphorical crown of gold and jewels. It is a spiritual coronation, the moment when everything hidden within you finally stands revealed. You have passed through seasons that would have broken most, yet you did not collapse. You bent, but you did not break. You questioned, but you did not quit. The proof of your faith is written in endurance, not perfection. Heaven now looks upon you and calls you refined, ready, royal. It is written in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." That declaration belongs to you now. It is the anthem of the chosen, the ones who refuse to surrender even when surrounded by darkness. You have fought battles that others could not see. The scars you carry are not marks of failure. They are signatures of victory. You are not emerging as the same person who began this journey. You are stepping forward as someone crowned by endurance, tempered by obedience, and marked by divine identity. Heaven has been crafting your crown since the first tear you shed. Every moment of pain added a gem. Every act of faith polished the gold. Every prayer whispered in exhaustion shaped its frame. And now, the moment of completion has arrived. The test has done its work. The proving has produced purity. The crown you carry is invisible to the world, but radiant to the spirit realm. It is the authority that comes from endurance, the peace that flows from surrender, the wisdom that shines through scars. This crown cannot be earned through striving. It can only be received through submission. When God crowns a person, He does not merely elevate them, He entrusts them. Your trials were never random, they were lessons in responsibility. You now understand power through compassion, leadership through humility, and purpose through pain. This is why your crown fits so perfectly. It was molded by your own history. Think of how gold crowns are made. Fire shapes them, Pressure refines them, and patient craftsmanship perfects them. That is what heaven has done with you. You have been melted, molded, and purified until all that remains is authenticity. The shine of your spirit no longer depends on applause or validation. It reflects divine consistency. Now, as heaven places this unseen crown upon your head, something shifts within you. The fear that once followed you begins to fade. The doubt that once whispered loses its voice. You no longer crave confirmation from others because the King himself has affirmed you. What once drained you now fuels you. What once wounded you now teaches others to heal. This crown does not mean the end of battles, but it does mean the end of striving. You will still face resistance, but now you will fight from rest, not from panic. You will no longer beg for doors to open, they will open at your arrival. You have become a living testimony of divine endurance. You may not realize it, but your story has already begun to shift atmospheres. Your presence now carries authority. Your words carry healing. People will feel peace when you enter a room, not because of who you are, but because of what you've endured with grace. That's what a crowned one carries: weight without arrogance, light without noise. The world measures crowns by visibility, but heaven measures them by resilience. The true royalty of God is recognized not by titles, but by scars turned into strength. And that is you now, a ruler of your own spirit, a keeper of divine peace, a vessel of eternal light. There is a holy quiet that follows coronation. You don't need to announce what heaven has already declared. Your life itself becomes the proclamation. Every step you take, every choice you make, every act of love you release is a sermon of victory. You've learned that glory is not loud, it's steady. And so, as you walk forward from this chapter, carry yourself with the calm confidence of one who knows they are seen by heaven. You have walked through shadow and fire, endured silence and testing, yet never lost your light. The crown is not the reward for surviving, it is the evidence that you have been transformed. Now your journey changes shape. You are no longer walking to become the chosen one, you are walking as the chosen one. Every promise you once waited for will now begin to unfold. Not because you chased it, but because you became aligned with it. This is your coronation. Heaven stands. The angels take note. The refiner steps back and smiles at his reflection in your soul. You, the once broken vessel, now shine with the brilliance of purpose fulfilled. You have fought the good fight, finished the race, and kept the faith. The crown of completion rests upon you, and the kingdom within you begins to reign. Chosen one, if you've journeyed through every word of this message, then you already know this wasn't just a script. It was a conversation between heaven and your heart. You didn't stumble here by accident. Every paragraph, every pause, was timed to meet you exactly where you are. You have walked through fire and silence, through waiting and awakening. And now you stand crowned not just with promise, but with peace. So before you go, pause for a breath of gratitude. Let it settle deep inside you. If this message has spoken to your spirit, if you've felt God's presence stirring through these words, take a moment to keep the light flowing. Like this message, not as a gesture, but as an act of agreement that light still matters in this world. Share it with someone who might be standing in their own darkness, unsure if heaven still sees them. Your simple act might be the spark that guides them home. And if you haven't already, subscribe, not just to follow another voice online, but to stay connected to this divine rhythm, where every word is a reminder that you are never alone in the journey. Leave a comment below, write what your heart felt, what truth resonated, what part of this message reminded you that you're still chosen. Together, our words create a chain of light stretching across nations, one heart at a time. Stay in the flow, keep shining, and remember the world still needs your fire.